Hey guys, ZackstaDaxta here, and today I'll be reviewing Iron Man 3. Alright, so if you're looking for some fun summer flick, I'd say look elsewhere. This installment is more tension and drama filled than the rest, I'd say, with the situation much more desperate in a really personal way. Basically, it's one of those movies where it's like, let's throw as many obstacles in the way of the characters as possible. This is usually a decent storytelling technique, and it does work here. So if this is a dark, tense movie, will there be enough action to fill the quota of a superhero movie? Oh, don't be mistaken, you'll get your fill and more. That tension only serves to build the stakes and danger of the action scenes. Iron Man's action scenes have never felt quite so real. There's quite some brutal action in here too. It's a thriller. You'll find yourself often questioning how the characters are going to get themselves out of this giant hole the writers have dug for them. And the hole is like really deep and slippery, and the writers keep, poking them down with a very long pole. So for all that gloom and doom, there must be some comedy, right? Yeah, there's the usual comedy, maybe amped up a bit. Some of the funniest bits of the movie to me were how Tony Stark interacts with this try-hard, witty little kid who ended up actually being pretty likable. He's not some benevolent being that says, kids are the future of everything. No, he treats him like a little pest that, he has to swat. Perhaps he was treating him that way because he wasn't used to being in such a down-in-the-rut state and was trying to preserve a distant image of a guy who has everything in control. Certainly quite distant from how he was feeling with his nervous breakdowns that he has throughout the movie from a condition he has. The plot has to do with a terrorist organization called the Mandarin causing terror through several means who has quite a shocking twist associated with them. I think the twist, for those that know it, is maybe saying, hey America, should you really be worried about terrorists right now? What if it's all a distraction for a much worse underlying issue that's hidden away? I think Pepper was a little underutilized in this movie, but she gets quite a nice payoff at the end that perhaps makes up for it. Even with that payoff, I still think she was a little too damsel in distressified in this movie, but she is still the feisty old Pepper, so... In light of recent superhero movies taking more serious philosophical questions under their wing, Iron Man does the same by having Tony Stark starting to become obsessed with his suits in a neurotic way. He believes the suits are him, and he was perhaps trying to make better versions of himself because he's, well, narcissistic. He did make 42 versions after all. He eventually realizes throughout the movie that he himself is the force that drives the suits. He's the mechanic, he builds stuff and fixes it. The suits are just another thing he built, tools. They were a physical manifestation of a big obstacle between Tony and Pepper's relationship. Now that that's all cleared up and Pepper can defend herself, future movies are going to be quite interesting, I would think. Speaking of interesting future movies, this one itself is interesting because it's the first one to take place in a post-Avengers world, and some of the things are linked to the world, which is really cool. Like, a lot of people remember him, like the events that happened in the Avengers, relating to Tony. And he actually develops a condition from that movie, and it inhibits him quite a bit. It's pretty cool. They did a good job with it. It definitely feels like more of an interpersonal adventure than the previous movies. Inside the mind of Tony Stark, because you're taken to a lot of different locations, and when he was in Tennessee I felt just as frigid as him. How fast does it take you to get through these? It has a brisk pace for sure, but I felt the final act did drag a bit. Overall, I think this Iron Man was very much worth seeing, and while it's not as pulpy and easily digestible as the first one, I see this as a movie that I'll rewatch at least once. I'm an up-and-coming reviewer, and this is one of my first videos, but what I do is I rate things in tiers and not on a rating scale, so I'll put this movie in the great tier, which is roughly a B from me. Check me out if you feel like it. I'm ZackstaDaxta, and I'll see you guys later.